Um, so tomorrow is my the scheduled foreclosure for my grandmother's house. Um, as everybody knows, how I even got into this was because my grandmother passed, and I kind of got dragged into a shit show. That was the probate process. And prior to my experience, I did not know about trust funds. I did, I knew nothing. And this is and I'm an attorney. So I encourage people when people are embarrassed or feel some kind of way for not knowing, I'm like, we weren't supposed to know. It was not something that, you know, it the systems are designed how they are designed for a reason. And those who know continue to get power, and those who don't were never supposed to know. And we should not beat ourselves up about that. It's like, but now if you can hear my voice, if you can see what I'm saying, then I'm absolutely willing to share my experience and for us to learn from it. So tonight's class is going to be called The Price of Probate. But also I'm going to teach like what are we going how do you frame your trust to do what probate why we want to avoid probate and why trust is so good. We're going to frame our trust to avoid probate and what about probate is bad. Like, what are we avoiding? I think that's what people don't know. And that is something that I think if you are talking to your family and you are going back and sharing this information with anybody, I think this is a framework that we all need to be educated on as to where probate can take us. And so my example is is our case study. You know, because my family has been drugged in probate court. My grandmother passed January 19th, 2024. It is now May 5th. The foreclosure date is May 6th, which is tomorrow. They did not give us a payoff, though I requested it until March 20th, 2025.
Wow.
So for an entire year, I have documented that I requested a payoff starting in March of 2024. When I found out, when I came home, remember I told y'all I came home in March. My grandmother died in January. I came home to care for my dad in March. When I came home, there was all this. My dad was like, I got to come up with $60,000. Come up with $60,000. I'm like, for what? What's going on? Like, what? And that's when I found out there was a reverse mortgage on my grandmother's house. Um, and then the shit show began. So, one, I don't even know how to teach this other than to just tell my story so that we can talk about the price of probate. So, one, everybody in your family does not feel the same way. Okay, does not think the same way, was not raised the same way. Even in your within your siblings, there are differences about how we choose to do and handle and navigate and through life, period. Okay. One of the worst times to have to navigate is in death, right? We all can agree that emotions are at their peak high in death. And so if you are a person who knows, about the just emotions, then you have to kind of calculate for that. That is probably one of the number one reasons why probate is tough is because people are in their most highest and most vulnerable emotional state, yourself included. You want to cry every day when you lose a loved one. You want to cry every single day, and I can't even say it without crying because it is painful. It hurts. It is, you want to grieve. However, probate robs you of that experience. Okay. From the moment that someone dies, this country is set up to come for whatever it is that they think they can get. Okay. You will be you will be inundated. Whoever is the caretaker or the person at the house, or if there's a, you will be inundated with mail. They've already started. Okay. They start preying on older people. It's just all this mail, all this advertising for all of these things. That's how older people get in reverse mortgages anyway. Uneducated, don't tell nobody in the family. Just sign it up like, oh, my grandmother probably got about $150,000 cash is probably what she received for what they are. 705,000 is what they
Mm.
have for the foreclosure price. Okay, we have to think. We need to think diabolically. First of all, you need to think diabolically. The probate process can be and is often for us diabolical. Okay, they don't want you to have it. That's how you need to know. So the only way you're going to keep it is to protect it and keep them out of your business. And that's why we like trust funds, because it is going to be it's not just it's going to be this is what we have. Because that's the other thing. Why are we looking all over for things? No, 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 no. In one document, okay, it's going to be a list of assets. One document. Everybody, you're gonna want that one place where anyone can grab and see these are the assets that grandma had, these assets mama had, aunt, uncle, sister, brother, cousin, whoever. Now it's like, okay, what do we want to be done with them? And that should be done when you're in your most sane and right mind, and not when you're older. That's what people are like, no, you need to be growing up when you're young. You want to take risk, and you still, I'm not trying to be funny, but like, I'm a caretaker. You know what I'm saying? It's just, they, they gave us March 20th was the payoff, was the final payoff. April 1st, I got a notice for foreclosure on May 6th. Okay. Face. Yes. It was a race against the clock. Now, mind you, the first part of it was, I said, family. Okay. But they're banking on your family being all over the place, which is why it's better to go and duke it out right now and
Yep.
get clear than have to try to duke it out when they are pressing on your back. Okay. And they will be pressing. And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, reverse mortgage. We don't have that. You probably still have a mortgage, and those people are just as relentless." So the truth of the matter is that whatever you have, and even if are your taxes paid up, because it's so many things that can have you vulnerable that you don't even know to think about because you just don't know, and that's okay. But listen to me when I say, under no circumstances should you not have a trust fund. I don't care how little you think you have or how much you know. Under no circumstances. Make it clear for everyone. Let your children grow up in them. Annual meetings. Trust funds should have annual meetings. The members of the trust should meet annually just to say, this is where we are. If there are new changes, go on about your day. If we want to do something new, if somebody has a proposal, let's hear it out. Okay? But to not try to work with your family and decide that they're gonna, no. It's the only reason. And I said, now we're gonna say, because I have told y'all, the testimony is we got the assets today because we paid off the reverse mortgage. Okay, 304,600, and we paid it off. But that's because, guess what? Family came together
Yeah.
and took out a retirement and put out cash. And I'm talking about ex-wife to ex-husband. Like, the only way we made it is because the family came together. And that's because I have created a trust and I've already told everybody what we're doing. As soon as we get this house, we know this house is going in a trust. We're going to invest here, here, here. Like, you can give your family a plan to succeed. It does not have to look like what it's looking like for us.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm like, trust funds, trust funds, trust funds, because probate is a monster that is here to take. And it's a reason a third of our wealth is being lost in the process. And it's because we don't know it and we don't understand how grave it is. Because I know if people knew the monster of probate, they would be blowing my phone up to get trust funds. Like there would be no one who I know who'd be like, "Ah." First of all, we need to stop thinking of it as a tool for just death to protect. It is a tool for building wealth, generating wealth, protecting wealth, yes, but just also generating and fueling wealth. That's why this class is Grow Your Trust Fund, because we are talking about strategy. And last week um we talked about private lending as being a strategy to fund your trust. And guess what? That's what we did because different people said, okay, well, I will take this out of my retirement, take out a loan. You just pay me back with interest, right? And it's like, okay, cool. So now you have private lending within your community. And guess what happens? Recycling back to black. Because I don't care about giving my mom an extra 10% because who's that going to go to? Me. Here. And I am very proud of this, that we were able to figure it out, come together, work together. That's why when I keep telling people, I said I'm going to write 1,000 family trust funds. It's because I don't want to write individual trust funds. We're doing this for families. I don't care if you're one person and you don't have no kids, you got a family somewhere. Would
Yeah.
you want to bolster the name of your family, or do you want to go back to where it came from for names that have already taken advantage? I'm sorry, but I'm choosing my brother, my sister, I don't care how much we've disagreed.
Mhm.
If it came down to it and it got to be taken, or we figure it out. And that's how you're going to have to come to your family. Listen, uncle, auntie, I know y'all got this house. I know you got kids. I am not trying to interfere with that. But I am saying that I'm starting this trust fund with my parents. At the very least, let me put your assets in it, and we can still distribute it how you want to, but let me just put. And again, they might be like, do what? And you might have to say, it is better for us to work together and keep our family's wealth than for us to not have a plan and it to go somewhere we did not intend for it to go. And a lot of people think it's automatic, and it's not. Transfer of wealth is not automatic.
Ooh.
If you don't transfer the wealth, it's not transferred. If you don't do that's what I said. I talked to a guy this week for consultation call, and I gave him all his options basically because his somebody has died, and I have written a book called Somebody Died Now What, because I realized no matter how many times I tell y'all to get a trust fund, there are people who are not going to do it, and they are going to need to go to probate. And so my fee will start at probably $25,000. I'm sorry because I just went through and I'm not about to touch nobody probate for I said 10, but after no 25 for my because even today I'm in court today filing a document trying to down to the last. I'm like, y'all, it's 4:38 p.m. and I'm trying to file something so to stop this foreclosure. No, I understand why attorneys are like, it's crazy to try, like probate attorneys are ridiculously expensive, and I'm like, I am about to be too because I kept saying get a trust fund. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, spend $2,000 to get a trust fund. Now you over here and you about to take up a year of my life because that's what we talking is at least a year. So we talking about time, energy, docu fees, interest accruing. It's the cost of probate. I calculated how much my family has spent. And and let me just say, my family has me, so they did not have to pay for a lot of stuff. We still had to pay attorneys, but it wasn't nothing like it could be, especially because we had a very litigious, meaning a very challenged probate, meaning, and most people do because there's going to be two sides. Just like I talked to this, I said, I know you say that your dad wanted you to have the house, but it sounds like your sister was his caretaker. You sure she gonna be okay with you saying that's supposed to be your house all outright when she took care of him? I'm like, it sounds like y'all got to fight and y'all need to come to the table and have a conversation about what what it needs to look like. Because if you wait for probate, first of all, probate isn't, you can't wait for probate. You
Mhm.
have to initiate it. They're not going to come to you. You have to initiate it. But if you don't initiate it, somebody else will and can. And you don't want that. So you initiate it. You know, you're the person, if you know you have to initiate probate. But the thing about it is just because you initiate it don't mean you get it. And that is where the fighting comes in. Because even if you think, oh, I'm going to not say nothing to my sibling, some of you all who think to be duplicitous, I'm going to do this, and guess who's going to notify your sibling? They're going to track them down. You might not have known where they were for 24 years. They're going to go find them, or they're going to put something in the paper. Either way, somebody going to find out what you're doing. And then they're going to contest it. And all of a sudden, now we got to fight about what goes to whom. And we have to prove to the court that we are the heir to something that we know is ours. And the crazy part is that even if you're uncontested, if nobody, you still got to prove to the court that it's yours. Even if there's no heirs and no other beneficiaries, you're the only one, you still have to prove to the court. And I think that that is wild, especially when there are courts that then will require you to have an attorney, so you can't even do it pro se, meaning you can't even represent yourself. So they require you to go get a probate attorney, even though you've you don't have any, like, it's mine, just give it to me. I have a client who was in probate the same amount of time that I've been in probate, and she is the only heir. There is no other heirs, no other beneficiaries. It was her uncle, and she has been in probate for the same amount of time that I've been in probate being contested. And she didn't have to do just as much running around trying to prove that it is hers. When it's like, it boggles my mind when I think about it. And again, we don't know these stories, which is why at some point I'm going to have a whole podcast to just tell these stories, because people have to hear them. Because another thing, people will say, well, we're not fighting because it's just me. You still have to prove to the court, to the state, that it belongs to you, which is wild. I know, it's so wild, a concept that you can't even fathom that that's happening. But think, people, think these are the people who literally, I tell people all the time, they sold us crack. They literally sold us crack. Like, they literally came to me and said, take this drug that's going to fuck all your parents up. Like, they came in, and like, that's, I just sometimes am boggled that people don't. I'm like, no, I don't trust it. And that's how you need to be looking at all of these companies, particularly once you turn a certain age, that are come out the woodworks post 65. And we should warn our parents. We should. That's why I said part of the meeting of the trust is like, presumably the trust maker may be older, right? Because that's, if you have somebody. I mean, because even if you make one, what you're really trying to protect is what they have, right?
Mhm.
Still, it's like, well, the trust maker should know about the dangers of what they, be leery, be weary, mom, dad, you know, this is what you have, but know that people are coming for it. Like, we should be discussing this without issue, but we don't discuss it. So again, we've paid a very hefty price. And I'm saying, to date, as of today, May 5th, okay, 9:25 p.m., our family has spent mm, 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 Okay. Like, do we have it up here? Because it said that we have spent $378,987.52. Look at your face. Rhonda.
Mhm.
I was like, wait.
Mhm.
300 and what? That's a property.
Yep.
That's what we had to end up doing is buying our property back. And
Yeesh.
I know that one of the things coming into this that I told my dad and that I would tell any client is that this is an absolutely pay to play game system. And we know that capitalism, America is a pay to play system. Okay.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have the money to play and they bank on that. Okay. That's why I'm telling you fund your trust, fund your trust, fund your trust. Like, then you, because you have to play games with these people. Okay. If you are in probate, you have to have the money to play in probate. And I'm not talking about just my case that was contentious, because that's a lot of money, right? But I'm just telling you also, the lady who is my client, who has no issues with nobody else, it's just her trying to prove to the court. She's out of 100,000+ just off of just trying to keep what is just hers and nobody fighting nobody else. Between all the fees and people come, she didn't have to pay. She's like, I cannot believe I'm having to pay out something else. Between attorney fees, you still got to pay the taxes, okay? Don't forget about your taxes. Don't forget about your home insurance. That probably will go up because now it's putting your name and not in the name that before. So now you got to pay those things. 'Cause if you stop paying that, that's going to give them grounds to take it. So you got to pay that. Even if you in probate and you don't have the title, you got to figure out a way to pay those things. Which, by the way, because you don't have the title, people going to give you a hard time trying to take care of bills that you don't have the title to or your name's not on it. That's a whole nother thing. So this like, well, you can't get home insurance for a name that you don't have clear title to.
Mhm.
So now for a lapse of home insurance, that triggers this stuff is connected, and I'm trying to tell y'all it's diabolical. That's why you want to protect it in the trust, because the ways in which, and we all have been taught at this point, oh, buy a home is a great investment. And we have not been taught how hard they're coming for your home. So one of the things I say, if you have a mortgage on your house, you need to get mortgage insurance. That way, when that loan is called due, because it will be called due, you can say, there go your check. Okay. In fact, I think that if depending, I think they could send the check directly, to pay off and paying off the mortgage.
Mhm.
Because if we talk about ownership, but again, who has the ownership, that's a that's always in question and fighting if your trust fund, and let me just say it has to be funded. Remember, we got to have everything in the name of the trust for this to be effective. So that's why we opened the trust account, which is why I told y'all to open the trust account, because I knew we funneled all this cash through the trust account. That's like just we're doing this through the trust account because there are protections, and it just tells people that I'm not even trying to be funny, but it signals to people that you're the halves, that you know something, and that's how you better act, okay? Because these people are definitely gonna act like they know something, even though it's predatory. It's in a lot of ways against the law how these companies react or behave at death, but you need to be on alert so that you can warn your family and then to protect yourselves. And I'm not a scary person. Like, I'm not, like, nothing about me is scary. But this is a scary thing that I've experienced. And I cannot say this enough. I want to be like, I just want to yell every day, get a transfer. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all are out here so unprotected. You have no idea. And then that's why we think we don't have anything, but they want us to think we don't have anything. So you don't protect it and you don't know the value because we thought, oh, you got to be super duper rich. We're so rich to have a trust fund. No, you just need to have an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, if you got an asset over $4,000, I personally think you should have a trust because a trust can cost you $2,000 with me. And then we protect it for. Sounds like a win to me. But that's what we need to think. But homes are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you didn't invest it and now you about to. No, I know that's not why people are working so hard. And that's most people are working hard to keep a roof over their head. And it's like, did you know that they might take this roof as soon as you leave here? I don't think everybody's like, what are you talking about? That's how it is designed. And so the price of probate, I just told you this is my story and this is my song. And it's heavy, it's heavy. I cannot stress enough that if you don't have the money, if you think you don't have the money for a trust fund, you damn sure don't have it for probate. That's what I'm saying. Like, like it's like when they say you don't. People like I couldn't afford an abortion. So you thought you could have a child? Like that's the same kind of logic here that we talking about. Is you think that you can afford not to have one, and that is the problem. You cannot afford not to have a trust fund, especially where we are now. Because now we got so many people and not so much land. And that's what people don't understand too. Now, more than ever, land, and that's what we talked about, another investment, grow your trust fund. I told you, buying plots of land because land will always be, because it's becoming fewer. So even in the rural areas, you can flip land because some people have a more forward-thinking mind. My point is that don't get left behind. And don't have taken this class with me and you don't have a trust fund because the cost of probate this I'm going to send a newsletter out and I'm going to say $378,000 and $907.52. That's what it costs for us to make it through probate. And I don't think we're done. That's to date. Okay, to date. Um, don't worry though. Don't worry because around day I've decided I'm coming for my family's money. But that's another topic for another. But my point is that we don't have to be here. And I know a lot of people lose their houses and it's less than $20,000 that could have probably been discussed amongst someone in your family had you been willing to have a conversation and
Mm-hmm.
come up with an idea together, a strategy together. And that's what trust funds are. Is you could come up with a strategy by yourself, but then it wouldn't really benefit the family's name, right? The legacy that comes from a trust fund is because we've strategized together and we took what we have and we said, how can we grow this to be more so that everybody has? And you can do that. And that's a different mindset and framework than we normally think in, than we've been taught to think in. But when I talk to people, and they are like, I'm like, can y'all have a conversation? Like I don't even mind mediating the conversation. But if you think it's supposed to be yours and somebody else thinks it's supposed to be theirs and it's still other people out there who you don't know what they think, you know, would you be willing to at least have a conversation with everybody to say, these are my thoughts or this is what I was thinking? Because you don't know what someone else is thinking unless you all sit down and hash it out, right? And so I think a lot of times too, people are different. You're not gonna have to fight over the house. You might just have to pay somebody off something. And it might be something slight. Um, they might want something, my my cousin who had to sign over the property. Part of the fight that we had was that she was difficult, but ultimately, when she came back and said what she wanted, it was for us to pay for the tombstone of my grandmother, which I thought was fair, and I had offered to do that at closing. Um, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? So though even those expenses are like, has the funeral been paid for? Because where that's coming from, and the whole death industry is a racket. Okay. And so to protect yourself from racketeering, you're gonna want a trust fund. Because even in the trust, it's like, don't spend more than this on this. In fact, some people buy their burial plots ahead of time because they know that it's gonna be cheaper. They buy their, tombstone or the casket ahead of time. Personally, I'm like, I'm dead. Just throw me out somewhere. I'm good.
What I
I've,
say.
I've elevated to the top. No need to worry about material down earthly things. No need to worry. I mean, really. But everybody doesn't think like that. And so we need to, but we need to think about these things ahead of time. And I know talking about death can be, it could be, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people would be very, very uncomfortable, particularly us. I have never had a problem talking about it, but I do know that people are like, why you bring that up? Listen, again, I say we'll talk about what we can do while we are living. Okay, take it from the approach of what can we do while we're living, and I think that the price of probate is so big. We're talking about time, we're talking about money, we're talking about energy. Okay, somebody reminded me that I started this in March 2024. And they were like, yeah, because my best friend, he's like, yeah, because you've been talking about this for a year. And I was like, I know, that's so crazy. I knew coming in I was going to give up a year of my life to this, right? And I told God I got a year. And then I said, and if it's anything longer, you're going to have to carry me. And he has absolutely had to carry me because this has been crazy. I just didn't know the aggression that you experience during death. Like, it's literally like, oh, my condolences, but you owe this, or this is did it, or this is supposed to be. Like, some of the letters, I've read some of the stuff that got sent, and it's just crazy. Like, I think I read one letter that's like, oh, we credited your account this, but after further review, yada yada, you actually owe us this. And it was labeled to the estate of Janae Henderson, would let me know that you knew someone had passed, and now you're trying to seek some money. Like, I am disgusted by it all. And until you experience for yourself, you don't know. And some people say, well, my family didn't go through probate. And like I was saying, sometimes that's just because nobody was really looking for what you got.
Yep.
At some point when they come looking,
Figure it
you'll
out.
have to now probate 2 estates or 3 estates back, which will then cost you 10 per estate. Right? Because that's what attorneys do. They charge per estate. So you thinking, oh, well, our family, we're good just because, no, you're not. If no one went to probate and no one in your family ever heard of probate, you need to check on that title. You need to check on the title and see whose name is in it. And the thing about it is, a lot of times we think it's automatic, so we don't know. But if you pull the title, it'll be in great great grandma's name. And then no one can do anything with that without probating it. So then someone else who's not a member of your family comes in, swoops in, and says, I'll pay for the probate. I'll do the probate. And the family, because they don't have the money to pay, you're so grateful somebody's going to pay for your probate. And whole time they're going to take what they have contributed. Okay. So, and you thinking, well, just take it then or sell it, or you're losing. probate is a loss. You talk about if you want to be a loser. I'm sorry.
I got a question because this just
Yes.
popped up in my mind. The more that you're talking, and I'm thinking about like on both sides of my family, like there's land in
Hmm.
Mississippi that is the family land, but I know nobody went to probate from grandparents or even great grandparents.
Right.
Would a strategy be letting it go, but then like swooping in, paying the taxes, and then taking the land back over? Like, is that a
Um, I mean, you don't have to let it go in that case, though. You could actually just come in and probate your family's land, and say,
But if you got to do it by estate, if I have to do like a great grandparent, then a grandparent, then a parent.
yeah. Oh, but the thing about it, okay, this is what I tell people: if you do nothing, you have nothing. So if you do nothing, you have nothing. So trying to get it after the fact. Now people have done that strategy where they've let something go, let it all the way go. But that means you banking on somebody else probating or doing something, and that might not happen in your lifetime. So
Yeah.
again, I'm like, if you do nothing, you have nothing. If you come in and you just say, okay, I'm gonna pull the title for these properties, and you see where it is, again, Mississippi is not Atlanta. So you might be able to do it reasonably, and you might be able to have somebody who kind of walk you through the process, and you can do it yourself for fairly cheap. You know what I'm saying? Affordably, and save your whole family's land. It's worth just going to investigate. I always say, like, if you find out, you want to be clear about what it is, what the asset is, and then be clear about whose name it is. So pulling title is where I'm like, it's important to do that. Um, or know what the title is. And again, title work is something that I'm like, we need more Black people in. If you want to encourage a niece and nephew what to do, let's look into title work, okay? Because it's not enough of us who own title companies, and who can trace back, title and when something was purchased. Like my grandmother purchased this house in 1952. The other house that's like around the corner was like 1930 something. Like and so now I found the original titles, which is kind of cool. But that grandma, that great great grandmother passed. So my dad now has the title. Like, so it has to follow unless it's in a trust. So you have to be intentional about making sure you transfer title to each generation, but not if it's in a trust. Because if it's in a trust, it's going to do it automatically by successor trustees. And
Yeah.
remember, if you create a trust, I'm suggesting, and this is not nobody's rule, but I'm suggesting that you do annual meetings, which means that everyone will have grown up in the trust. So you have nieces and nephews who, came to the meeting when they were 8, but they know, oh, we got to trust. You know what I'm saying? Like, they might be like that about it, but they know about it. It's an annual meeting. And so nobody is like right now. You're like, I think we got some land in Mississippi. I don't know if it's probate. I don't know who has the ownership or the title of it. I know nobody did probate. That doesn't happen when you have a trust fund and you have annual meetings. Okay, because somebody listened in that meeting, especially when you bring in, numerous kids from, different families, etc. Like, it's like, well, I know. And even if somebody blows it off, everybody's not gonna blow it off. And so again, when we talk about trust funds versus probate, I'm like, I don't know that I have done a good job of saying what are the price of probate. I think I have now, but I'm saying before, I don't think I stressed to you why we say avoid probate. Because even when I see other attorneys advertise, they're like, trust fund to avoid probate. But again, what is probate that you're trying to avoid it? And it is very expensive. Um, you're paying for all of the filings, if you do it yourself. If you pay an attorney, you're paying off the break. Like I said, estate plan attorneys going all money up front, thousands of dollars, and we don't care if you don't have it. Like, probate is expensive, and it's then going to take you time. So while I quoted you at 10 to start, the more I have to get dragged into the court, the more I have to file something, the more I have to get on the phone and figure out, that's money that's going to be in, you know, racking up. And so attorneys on average fees an hour. Somebody told me I need to raise my prices. Everybody been telling, all attorneys have been like, you need to raise your hourly price. You know, I'm like, God, y'all are at 450, 500, 650. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't, I'm not that type of lawyer. I don't know that I ever would just be like, just because I can, I will. I don't know that that's how I operate.
Mhm.
Um, Especially if I say I want us to be better. Now, granted, I don't need the bells and whistles, right? I don't need a fancy office. Y'all see I'm in here in my like I thought about it, I said, whew, you probably too comfortable. But again, I'm not her. So if you want her, then by all means, but when those kind of terms, I'm like, the reason you're charging so much is because the upkeep of your lifestyle is way, you driving a luxury vehicle, you got a big old house. I'm living in my grandma's house from 1952. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just think values different, okay? And
I'm
if
like, yeah.
you want that, I think there are a lot of attorneys that cater to that, but ultimately, I'm just trying to make sure that we position ourselves better. And so that to me is what a trust fund does, is it positions your family to win. And if you can frame it to everybody as if we're growing it and not this is a tool for death, I think it's easier to get people to sign on. If
Mhm.
people think they're about to make some money, who's going to say no to making money? You know what I'm saying? Like, who's going to say no? We're having a meeting about how we can all be trust fund babies. I'm going to come to the meeting. If my family sent out a text that says, we're figuring out a way that no one has to pay rent. Sign me up. Sign me up to the meeting. And that's where I think we have to frame it differently, and where we have to be more creative in how we position ourselves, and myself included, because I'm constantly trying to think of how we can decrease the 90% of us who do not have a trust fund, and thus the 1/3 of wealth that's being lost in the probate process.
Mhm.
90% and 1/3, those are some big numbers, okay? Especially considering how much Black people consume and spend. And so it's like, do not take advantage of this tool that can help you, not just in your death, but also in your life. Really grow and live a more sustainable, free life. So this class is all about growing the trust. I think we talked a lot about strategy. Aronde, last week, so you weren't in here. So when you watched the replay of the strategy, did things make sense? Did you feel like you got something? Did you feel like you start to create a strategy for your own family or stuff you're going to present to them?
So I'm kind of coming at it from two different angles. It's like the media one is definitely like my mom's
Yeah.
thing, but what I definitely want to bring to the family is like my grandma's,
Mm.
like because my grandma's house, like that's kind of the landing place.
Yeah.
I have no idea what kind, excuse me, what kind of mortgage situation is happening. I just know that they're just kind of going along. And I feel like if they created a trust for my grandma's assets, like, and the siblings all agree and put everything in the necessary buckets, it will eliminate a lot of the chaos that will ultimately happen once my grandmother passes, because she's 98. Like, she'll be 98 next month.
Oh, wow. Well, one, congratulations to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Um,
Appreciate it. But yeah, so
yeah,
I
you're
know.
right. Oh, I didn't know your grandmother because I don't think we talked about your
Mhm.
grandmother
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my
starting this journey.
yeah, my grandmother's 98. My mom and her sister are the caretakers. Um, there's drama with that. So I already know like it's gonna be I don't want to be nowhere near Illinois when that happens. So if we can
Listen,
figure this out before that happens, and I can
yeah.
at least be in Indiana. Like if they don't figure it out before she passed, I want to be in California. I don't want to be nowhere near Illinois. Um,
Oh yeah, understood,
yeah.
understood.
But taking it back to the classes, I try to take as many notes as possible and just understanding that the trust fund is a strategy plan, and then there's the different ways to fund the trust. So real estate, high yield savings accounts, CDs. I do need to look into CDs for myself, but that's something else. The life insurance policies, I'm sort of into stocks, but I can do better. Cryptocurrency, I stay away from it because it's too volatile. And I don't see
Mhm.
how it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't see what it's based in. Like it's more easily manipulated than actual cash, but maybe I don't know something. I have to dig into it a little bit more. But right now I'm like, nah, I
I
ain't got
feel
it like that.
that.
And then side hustles, I've that's been on my mind recently as well, just because life is expensive. And so figuring out my little side hustles to see if I can generate some more income of some sort.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, okay, so look, one, that means I covered
Mhm.
the various ways to fund trust because I'm like, dang, I talked about that. Oh, I did. Yeah. Man. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that means I hit all of the different ways that you can essentially fund your trust. And so I'm glad about that because I'm not an expert in all these different ways. I just know about them at this point. I know a little bit, and I'm glad that that is helpful to you to kind of think about how you can fund your own trust. Yeah, your grandmother being 98, I'm like, Aronda, yeah, let's get a trust fund in place. Um, even like power of attorneys, does your mom and sister have her power of attorney?
I believe so. Yeah, I think my mom is my grandma's power of attorney, and I'm pretty sure my sister is my mom's power of attorney. But again, we this trust situation, it'll at least all be laid out.
It will be. Listen, it will be. Oh my gosh. So, okay. Um, so really quickly, I'm going to go over the pieces of your trust that I include that I think roughly if you are getting a trust, have a trust, somebody writing a trust, you want to look for these things in yours. Um, so take it on my notes. Okay, so the first one is that you want like a summary, a brief kind of summary overview of what the trust is and what's the trust plan, right? Um, also you want to make sure that you're defining what kind of trust it is. Again, we're always starting with a revocable living trust. I don't know how you can start with anything else, but I'm sure people have done something. But revocable living trust. Then if we're adding more trust, that's fine. If we're really wealth building, wealth creating, all that. But start with revocable living trust. But your trust will state what kind of trust it is at the very top. Then you want to pour over will, right? So if you have an estate plan, you want to pour over will, that a trust that includes a pour over will. That means that it is a will that is written to say that everything I did not include, I intended for it to be in this trust. So pour it on over to these trusts and let the trust govern and let the trust instructions guide. Um, Pour over wills depend by state, like whether you have to probate something that comes into your estate after the fact. Most common example I would give is like if you have an accident and you get a settlement check, obviously they don't know about your trust. They would put it in your personal name. And so the pour over will would say that settlement check is to pour over into my trust and how it is set up. But again, um, it depends on your state, your jurisdiction. What I will say is that everything, I believe strongly that a good attorney can do anything. So if you, if that's a concern for you about whether your pour over will actually not have to be probated, you got to have a good ass attorney. I would say that every estate planning attorney is not a litigator. This one is. So, but everybody, just because they write or do it, most people are doing estate planning as a way to be a more relaxing attorney, especially litigators. Like a lot of litigators get into estate planning because they're like, I want to chill. But again, if they have litigated, if they're coming out of litigation, you can always kind of bring them back in. But if that's a concern, that's something that to deal with whoever you have writing your trust. You also nominations. So those are the names of the people who are involved in your trust, right? That's the nomination section. Then you have personal information, and that will include your most up to date, your personal financial, and that's you. This is just saying you can tell or not tell the attorney drafting as much information as you want about your personal information, but the idea is that it needs to be somewhere, right? So you want to store it in your trust. Like, what is the personal and financial information as it is at the time of writing the trust? And this is what I tell people. It gives you a starting point. So people are like, well, this is going to change. Absolutely, it's going to change. Numbers fluctuate. But at least we know generally speaking, where we started, because I know if you're playing on my top, right? If I can look and say, what you mean? The policy was only $25,000. I'm looking at something that says she had a policy for, you know what I'm saying? Like the trust, we started with this, so how would it have decreased? For instance, my dad just told me about he has an investment account. I saw the investment account. There's some money in it, but it also looks like it has over the years significantly decreased. And I'm like, well, how is it an investment account and it's going down instead of going up? Now I haven't looked into this just yet, but I did peep it. Okay, we had more important things to do, but this is just something I found out he had on Saturday. And that's the other thing. People be having money, especially older people. We got to talk to them. Yeah, we have to talk to them. Because again, even this, I'm like, Dad, when were you going to tell me about this? Because I said we were short a certain amount of money. And he said, hold on. And went and peeled out this. I'm like, since when you had this? And I'm like, well, I can't even get the money out of this account in time. But also, this is another asset that I need to be knowing about and protecting. Because is there even a beneficiary on this account? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, we talk about, we not having anything as a community or generational wealth, and we talk about we want to have it, but we have it. We just haven't discussed it and protected it. And if you got, I tell people, everybody who's called me keep it like, I don't have anything, but then I ask them about the assets, and I'm like, we're at $1 million plus worth of assets already. If you have a home, if you have a life insurance policy, if you have a retirement account, you probably already hit $1 million. In this current economy, if you have a home, if you have a life insurance policy, if you have a retirement account, you're probably at about $1 million. Period. I just wish we all knew we were millionaires because I think we would all just behave differently. But that's how you need to be acting, like you are a millionaire. That's how they calculate it's an asset.
Yep.
And if you're the heir of a millionaire, you're in a millionaires. Like that's how that works. So I think it's like I need to protect this and work to make sure that we know what it is that we have. Funding instructions. So when I give out, so if you want to fund it yourself, obviously you can fund it yourself, but I do issue funding instructions for those who want to do it themselves. If you want to pay me to do it, absolutely. And then I see on social, I never investigated these, but people who have funding companies. So I guess they help people, fund. I don't know if it's trust. I don't know if it's business. I don't know. But the point is that I hear a lot of people saying this is how you can fund your trust, even though they themselves are not writing trust, they teach people to fund trust. I think those are like financial advisors. The point is that you can fund your own trust. All it is putting the assets names. And I don't know why we choose the word fund. I think it confuses people. But you're putting the assets that already exist into the name of the trust. It's just that's the process. The process is called funding or adding a beneficiary to an account. So one or two of those things means you're funding it. And every asset has to be funded. I think that's the like you cannot just fund some assets. That's Michael Jackson probate. You got to fund the entire trust. The entire every single asset has to be funded. Um, then we include power of attorneys, and then certificate of trust, which I said is that's a 2-page document that we did together. So I'm telling you, y'all already have yours. Trust assets is basically just a list of what the assets are. And then we do the healthcare, memorial instructions, property agreements. Um, and property agreements is if you own property and y'all gotta have certain agreements about what goes to who. So particularly when you have blended marriages, it's property agreements that need to be in place. Then you have personal affection just for people, because older people, and even let me not say older people, some people are very sentimental and they want to say this is to go to here, this is to go to here. It's a writing, that's a writing portion you can do. You do not have to do that when you do trust, but some people, it gives them something to do or think about. It does not have to be done. But essentially, so that is a rough outline of how I put together a trust, right? Um, the documents, it's a trust actual document that's written that includes articles. What I gave you two are ancillaries. So, like, in addition to your trust, these are the documents you're going to need because, again, we're talking about estate planning. We're talking about growing a plan. So, power of attorney is important because at some point, someone may not be able to make decisions anymore, talk for themselves, etc. And so you, as the power of attorney or whoever's the power of attorney, you're gonna want to have that document before it actually happens.
Mhm.
Don't wait to get it. He's saying don't wait to get it. Um, and don't wait till things are bad to do it. Like do things when things are good. So that's basically um what will be in the trust. More specifically, I am going to talk about the articles that are within the trust. Um, once you write the trust, so there's 13 different articles that need to be addressed typically in a trust. Whether it's a long, thorough trust or a short trust, these 13 articles are going to need to be what is specific. Again, here we're talking about growing your trust. So you're getting a much more tailored experience. When I write someone a trust, I'm going by default unless they tell me otherwise. So unless they tell me that I don't want the default definition, then I'm using the default definition, right? Um, and I'm going to highlight it, when I send them their summary. But here in this class, we are going to actually talk about, how specific you can get with your instructions and in your articles. Because again, this is a tailored contract to you and your family's needs. So what you want to do is really on you and your family to decide. So when we talk about those sections, it'll be specific to I'm gonna, of course, say this is what the default is, or these are the options kind of for default. And then, of course, you'll be in your mind thinking, oh, that's something we need to change for my family. You know what I'm saying? Like, they normally do that. That's not how we need to do it for my family. And I think, again, that's the beauty of this class is that you don't get that necessarily um, if you just get a trust done. Because again, we're talking about what you want to grow your trust to do. And I think if you remember at the beginning of the class, I asked you, what is the purpose of this trust? What do you want it to do? And mine is rent free, right? It's the framework of I want a rent free trust where we or any of my kids or the heirs don't have to concern themselves with paying rent.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that mean for my trust? How is it written, etc.? I think that's the same one. It's like, what is your goal? Because next week when we go through those articles, some things may not make sense or may not align with your goal, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
would be something that I would alert you that even if you don't get a trust with me, or you write your trust yourself, or however you choose to do it at this point, is that this is something you would be aware of. Like, okay, well, if it normally incapacitation means this, that's not gonna work for my family, right? So like, so then you just find it differently. So that's what we'll be next week. I think this is week 5.
I think so.
Yeah, we're week 5. Okay, so we have 3 more weeks. Um, so once I do this, my goal is to talk about tax mitigation and have somebody come in. I've been trying to coordinate schedules wise. It may not be on a Monday night. That's where I'm at now. It's like because we having a hard time coordinating. So even I'm like, just if it's 20-25 minutes to just hot fire about with your trust, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about trust mitigation. But next week, yeah, we're going to talk about the actual articles that are in the trust and you tailoring those articles to what you want your trust goal to be. And then yeah, hopefully tax mitigation. And then we'll have our last class. So
Mm-hmm.
Will the tax situation be next week or the week after?
the week after. Yeah, it will
Okay,
be.
good. Because I'm gonna be at a conference next week, so you're gonna see me in a hotel room.
Uh, no, no, no. Next week we're gonna go into how to
The
tailor your
articles.
trust specifically to your family's needs and goals. But I think the week after. Now again, trying to coordinate with his schedule or her depending on, but I'm trying to coordinate with his schedule particularly. And so I'll let everybody know if it's gonna be a different day, and then we'll try to coordinate that way. Um, but yeah, are there any questions for me?
No, but do you mind sending the link to this? Because I would like to listen again.
Absolutely, I will absolutely send the link once they send the link to me. And so yeah, thank y'all so much. This is healing for me. I've always be like, oh, I'm so tired, but I'm like, I'm gonna show up for this 9 o'clock class. And
I
yeah,
know. Almost, I was like, I might not go tonight. I'm like, I go.
I know
No, don't do
I
what I
really
did.
thought about sending y'all a message that said I'm
Girl,
exhausted and I don't have it to give.
my
I'll
dad is
make
in
it
the
up on the
hospital
back end.
right now.
You said what?
My dad is in the hospital right now. And I just drove to New York Friday night, drove back Saturday night, and then sang in a concert yesterday. I am dead.
Listen, this is
Dead.
what you told me. I'm like, I know I'm gonna sleep for a long, like probably 3 days. Because definitely have not slept at all. Um, Especially in this last week or so of this whole ordeal. I can't
I
tell
am
myself
praying
like I woke up
tomorrow.
again in the middle of the night. Huh?
I am praying for you tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I plan to go to the foreclosure. But one, I just want to see what happens because you better not call my family's name up there because y'all said y'all gonna see a fool for real. If they say this address, I'm gonna be like, oh hell.
Nope.
So, but I am equipped because I even filed something tonight, emergency foreclosure stay. That's why I was trying to make sure because just in case they try to say, oh, the paperwork didn't come through in time, I still, if I can get a judge to, issue a stay, then that would be ideal. But due to COVID and all the now, it's so. Remember back in the day, you just if you needed a motion like an emergency motion, you could get to the judge. You could find the clerk and be like, "I need you to go. Hey, go call him up on the phone. I know you guys personal number. Call him and have him sign or stamp his name. Stamp the judge's name. Now it's none of that. So it's
Really?
like, yeah. Now I'm sure in maybe small rural areas, but in cities, they're like, we can't even get to the judge. We can't get to the clerk either. I'm like, what you mean? They're like, you have to upload everything online and then it's in a queue and they take it as it comes
Wow.
in. And I'm like, but the foreclosure is tomorrow. And they
Wow.
were like, that's the best that we can opt for you. And mind you, that was them doing me a favor because they were like, because at first he was just kind of sending me like, okay, file it here, do this. And I was like, no. I said, so what's next after I pay? And he was like, well, someone will contact you, yada, yada. No, somebody has to tell me an answer tonight. Somebody has to make a ruling tonight because this is on for foreclosure in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, actually, let me see if I can get somebody. So he got somebody to help me file it in this computer and pay online. But they still were like, it's going to go it has to go through a portal. Like once it's out of our hands, we cannot take this motion. Because I'm like, back in the day, you could take a motion to a judge's desk. It's like, no, you can't do like, and that's the guy was like, we ain't been able to do that in 10 years. It's like, okay, damn, I know I'm old, but I'm like, and I know he was exaggerating because I'm like, this happened for COVID. All of this stuff happened from COVID. But it really does us a disadvantage, even more so, because it's like if you're trying to fight injustice and the justice system and it's already slow. I tell people all the time, the legal system is the slowest remedy. I've even told people, I said, if it's better to take it to the court of public opinion than to, because the legal system is so slow. Like, you better hold court on social media. Like, but now I'm like, in addition to it being slow, you can't even get, if you need to, because that's the whole point. It's like, because like I said, the whole point of a stay is like, this is the only option we can have to save this. And that's for anything, an injunction, emergency, just stop it. And I'm like, well, if the court isn't available to do that, because first of all, you don't need those things 3 weeks in advance, 2 weeks. You don't know that.
Nope.
They tell me you should have been signed. I'm here. I did. It's called emergency foreclosure stay.
You can't schedule emergencies.
Sir, and then because I wanted to be there at noon. My plan was to be there at noon, but I did not get there till 4 p.m. because we were at the bank. Oh, and I didn't think that it was gonna take that long at the bank, but it did. All the wires, all the money. And so I was like, I have to get to the court. I have to get to the court because I knew I need to put something in for, judicially to stop it in case I didn't get, they tried to act like they didn't get it. And I'm like, what does somebody do if they're not, I know why people are losing their property and their assets and their wealth and their money. It's because it's a very strenuous process. Probate is. I am a distance runner. I used to run the mile and the 2 mile and also cross country, and I was very good at running long distances. And I have stamina. That's what I have stamina. But what about the people who don't? I guess that's why you lose it. I guess that's would be exactly why you lose it because, and I hear people say like, my grandma was dead 2 months and it was over. We didn't have nothing, or 3 months. And I'd be like, and but now I'm like, because you would have to have stamina. The amount of no's, shut doors, people telling me I can't do this. Well, joke's on y'all. We did it. And I'm gonna hopefully teach a lot of other people to, build and create and trust funds. And like I said, it really is about working together. Um, and most people are not gonna, you ain't, the working together bug is not gonna hit you at probate and hit you after somebody died. I think that needs to go ahead. You need to implant that bug now. About, well, what can we do, so that no one feels left out. So like, and some people gonna say they don't care, and that's great. Then sign over and say you don't care.
Sign it.
It's like that part.
No, literally, like in my brain, I already know, like, once we figure out this trust, once we get all together as a family, it's gonna be me going around with a clipboard, like, hey, sign this. Because they don't answer phone calls, they don't answer emails. They be like, oh, I'll do it later. No, 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 nope, nope, nope. This.
Yeah.
You want a plate? Read this first. You can't get no
Listen,
food until
Yep.
you read
but
this. Yeah.
that's the level of intentionality that this requires, and it has to be someone who has to say, and that's just in my best friend who's like, I'm taking the next 8 week trust on course because I always tell him like a little recap. But he's like, yeah, see, I see this is gonna have to be me. I'm gonna have to take that role on. And I'm like, someone should, because ultimately it's gonna come back to you if you don't. It's almost like you're really just lessening your load and your burden financially, emotionally,
Your
you know.
future self.
Yeah, like physically, you really are doing providing a gift for yourself. And if you look it like that, and that's how I've been looking like this year, I'm like, nope, because you know what? When my parents pass, we good. And like we're gonna be sad, obviously, we're gonna grieve, and
Right.
but we're not gonna be scrambling around trying to figure out where money's coming or where money going and what got to be paid, and we trying to keep this house and keep that. It's going to be squared away and figured out. And that brings a great amount of peace to me, even as I'm doing this and I've had to sacrifice so much time and energy now. It's like you really are still giving yourself a gift of time back.
Mm-hmm.
And so, congratulations to you all. Good night to you all. We will be back next week. I will send you the video once I get the link.
Yep.
I'll
Thank you.
send it to the both of you. And if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. But otherwise, I'll see you next week.
See you
Thank you
next
so
week.
much.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.